love ad blockers. I know I shouldn't, I work in marketing, I own a marketing agency, but I love ad blockers. And if you work in marketing, you should too. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. Hands up, who loves ads? I love ads because essentially they put food on the table. I love ads because they are the core of my business. I love ads because they make my clients money. But as a consumer, ads can be annoying, they can be invasive, they can just completely disrupt my online user experience and in the end just me off. But luckily we have the wonderful piece of software that is the ad blocker to block most, if not all, of the ads that we see online. But 3 years ago, it was not the same story. Ad blockers were gaining huge popularity, loads of people were talking about them in the press, and the whole digital marketing community was pretty scared to say the least. I was doing a lot of research on ad blockers at the time, the amount that were being downloaded, which ones were being used, and the psychology behind why someone would use an ad blocker. And this led me to doing a TEDx talk called The Ad Blocker Future. Now in this talk I looked at the bigger picture of ad blockers, how ad blockers actually have a negative impact on, of course, advertising revenue. You've got the big giants like Facebook and Google that 90% of their revenue is from ads, and you've got all the advances in VR, AR, AI, research into driverless cars, medical advances, clean energy advances, research, education, philanthropy, loads of amazing things that are actually funded by ad revenue. And I presented this idea of an ad blocker future where everyone's using an ad blocker, we can't advertise as marketers, this ad revenue goes out the window, none of these things get funded. And I sort of went a little bit overboard because catastrophic thinking and said that if we don't have ad revenue, then we cease to advance as a human race, which was obviously catastrophic thinking. It's meant to make you think, it's bigger picture, but some people took it very seriously. Amy McManus is an ad for ads. She should be blocked. Various other things about how I'm a communist, other people getting very angry, and then my personal favourite, too many M's in the last name. Yes folks, because if you haven't realised already, the last 4 letters of my name spell anus. Very clever, very clever.
If you got that many trolls, does that make you super famous?
Yeah, because only celebrities get trolled, I think. Does that mean I'm a celebrity?
I guess so.
Okay, it's obviously not the case that we're not going to advance as a human race if everyone's using an ad blocker. But 2.5 years on, what's actually happening with ad blockers, and why do I think they're actually good for the digital marketing industry? So as a marketer, we've got people like Joe Jack, we've got people like Bang Duck. They obviously hate advertising, they obviously use ad blockers, they would obviously never admit that an ad has ever made them purchase something or influence their decision. But if I've got a client and Joe Jack or Bang Duck are in my client's portfolio list of people they want to target, I need to be able to do that, ad blocker or not. So back in 2015 there were 7.8 million ad blocker users, which was around about 15% of all the people in the UK using the internet. Then we saw this massive rise to 20.8% in 2017. Now this is a time when ad blockers are really spoken about in the marketplace, loads of people were downloading them, and it's quite a big story in digital marketing and in media as a whole. But recently the rise hasn't been that much. There's still people using ad blockers, there's still people downloading them, but after that huge spike between 2015 and 2017, in the last year the number of people using ad blockers in the UK has only risen by 0.9%. So the amount of people using ad blockers has actually really slowed down, and there's a number of reasons why this is. What's really important is I don't personally think that these figures actually are a true reflection of the number of people using ad blockers in the UK. Because within this 22.9% of people using ad blockers, we've got people that downloaded it and didn't use it, people who think they've downloaded an ad blocker and actually didn't, people that think their antivirus software is an ad blocker and it isn't. And also there's a huge percentage of people that have changed devices. We change our phones frequently, we change our laptops frequently, there's new updates all the time, and it's less likely that someone is going to continue to download the ad blocker software for every new device that they purchase, or use an ad blocker on all of their devices all in one go. So based on the research that we've done at AM Marketing, although we've got this figure of 22.9%, bearing in mind all those factors and others, it's actually around about 19% is the true figure of the number of people using ad blockers within the UK. So how are people trying to combat ad blockers, and why have we seen such a decrease in the number of people using them? So when I did my TEDx talk, I predicted a lot of things that we've started to see in recent years. I said we'd probably have to pay for YouTube. Now we have YouTube subscriptions. I said we'd see a lot more of sponsored content influencer marketing, hence the rise in influencer marketing and sponsored content, because it's a way of getting around ad blockers, right? But there have been some other ways that haven't really worked, where publishers and websites have tried to get around the ad blocker problem. Number one is pay to view. Now you may have seen this with sites such as the Times or the New York Times, where you're allowed maybe 10 articles a month and then you're capped out. They say if you want to read any more, you have to pay to view the content. Now this is great for someone like the New York Times or the Times, really established brands where people want to view the content and they're going to be likely to take out a subscription, likely to pay to view that content. But it doesn't work for the majority of publishers. And in most cases, if someone's using an ad blocker or if someone's just viewing that content, they're not going to pay. Particularly if it's a brand that's not well known or it's just a random website that you haven't been on before. Donations. So this is what I like to call the Wikipedia method, and works on the basis that the content will remain free to you even if you're using an ad blocker, if you kindly donate to help support their website and help keep the content fresh and up to date. But we found in reality it's only around about 2% of ad blocker users that will actually donate on the Wikipedia page. So that method doesn't work either. Removing your access. You might have seen this, particularly for those naughty ad blocker users out there, but when you get to a website, it notices that you're using an ad blocker and it asks you to remove your ad blocker to continue viewing the content. Now around about 12% of ad blocker users will do this, but the majority will not. Then essentially that is a huge chunk of people that you are no longer allowing onto your website. There's also the crowdfunding method, in which a website or publisher will crowdfund in order to keep content free. And finally, the freemium method. So a really good example of the freemium method is Reddit Gold, whereby the general website and content is free, but you can pay to have extras and that sort of little VIP behind the scenes access. Freemium works really well for things like apps and games, because these are the industries that we're used to seeing this method. You're used to downloading an app, and if you want to remove the ads, you've got to pay extra. Or if you want a special sword in a game or a special shield that's coloured blue instead of red, then you've got to pay a little bit extra as well. However, this method doesn't really work for traditional publishers and websites and the smaller brands, purely because people don't want to pay, or people will get frustrated that they have to pay after being told that it's free. Also, as a creator, website owner, publisher, how do you decide what's free and what's premium? And how can you do that without alienating a lot of your customers? But there's a bit of a more important reason why all of these methods have not worked. And it's because they put the responsibility on the website user. They've essentially gone, we're going to carry on making those ads you hate, we're going to carry on pushing stuff in front of your face that upsets your user experience, and if you don't like it, you've got to pay. Pay up or shut up. So essentially that's not going to work. I personally see ad blockers as a response to poor user experience. Ad blockers are a response to lazy marketers, to lazy ad creators, and people that aren't doing their jobs properly. So to have the response, we're going to continue to put the responsibility on you to remove those ads while we carry on doing what we're doing. It's just not going to fly. And that's why we've probably seen a huge increase in the number of people using ad blockers up until about 2017. So what does work? Why aren't as many people downloading ad blockers? Back in 2017, partly in response to the number of ad blockers that were being used, the Coalition for Better Ads was created, Google and Facebook joined, followed by a whole range of huge publishers and companies. And finally, we got some research based on the types of ads that are produced in the digital marketing world, which ones consumers like and which ones they despise. And they produced this amazing list. Some marked red, some marked green, some marked in between. You see, it's not that people hate ads, they just hate some ads. And as long as you're doing your job as a good marketer, keeps you on the green side. So what does work? Number one, non-intrusive ads. By this I mean ads that don't upset the user experience. When a huge proportion of ad blocker users were asked in a survey why they downloaded their ad blocker in the first place, the number one reason was that ads are annoying and intrusive, and the number two reason was that ads upset their browsing experience. So if you can produce a non-intrusive ad that does neither of those things, the reason for someone needing to download an ad blocker kind of doesn't exist anymore. Here is my example of a really awful intrusive ad. Between the ages of 28 and 30, Clear Blue thought, Amy must really want a baby. So I'm on YouTube trying to work on my clients. Clear Blue haven't got an impression cap set up. So constantly, all day, I'm being targeted with Clear Blue pregnancy test, blah, blah, blah. And it was a non-skippable as well, so I had to watch that bad boy for the whole 20 seconds. That was an intrusive experience, and it's one which means that I will never use Clear Blue in the future because of their lazy advertising and lack of correct targeting. So when marketers are thinking about non-intrusive ads, we're trying to make things more native. The ads need to match the media format in which they are presented. We don't want to upset people, we don't want to get the ads in people's faces, and we don't want to stop you doing what you're doing. Second one, useful ads. If the ad is actually useful, if it is targeted to you on the basis of it's something that you actually want or you are interested in, if you are able to click on that ad and go to a website that you genuinely want to read, that is something that someone wants to engage in. A useful ad is always targeted well, it always has great ad copy, and it always gets put in front of the right people that want to see it. And we've got number 3, just as important as a useful ad, a relevant ad. It's targeted well, it's relevant to the person who is viewing it, it's well laid out and not annoying. The Coalition of Better Ads creating this ad list, creating a no-no ad list, and giving marketers better advice on what consumers want and what they're going to find acceptable has meant that a lot of the main reasons why people downloaded ad blockers in the first place no longer exist. You've still got the naughty ones that like to be a little bit cheeky, you've still got the naughty ones that produce the ads that play music and you don't know where it's coming from. Very annoying ad. But the majority of people are now following these new rules and making marketing a better industry. In this sense, ad blockers have given marketing the kick up the arse it really needed, because the digital industry was getting lazy and it needed that boot to up its game. On the back of this research, the Coalition for Better Ads created the Better Ads Programme 2018, and that's what any marketing agency should be using as its basis for advertising. So that is why I love ad blockers and why every single digital marketer should love ad blockers too. Ad blockers have made the digital industry up its game. Ad blockers have given the digital industry the kick up the arse that it needed. Ad blockers weren't created from thin air. They were the response to a problem that was created by lazy marketing and digital ads that took. So if you're an agency that produces annoying content, if you're an agency whose ads upset the user experience, if you're an agency that does not care about targeting or relevancy, writes something generic and puts it out to everyone, if you're a lazy marketer that produces any of the ads in the bottom of this list, you give the rest of us a bad name. Ad blockers exist because of you. And if ad blockers are the reason that you go out of business, quite frankly, I'm glad about that, because it means the entire industry as a whole has just lifted its standards. So where are we now? Are we heading for an ad blocker future that I described in my TEDx talk? No, we're not. We're not heading for a world without digital advertising, but we are heading for a world where digital advertising is much better quality. As marketers, agency owners, people that work in the digital industry, we need to evolve. We created a problem, resulted in ad blockers, and now we're reacting to rectify it. Whether you're producing display, PPC, YouTube, or any other type of digital advertising, you no longer want to be producing something that makes you seem like the horrible, pushy car salesman that won't take the hint. Instead, you are the helpful shop assistant that is guiding someone on the way to their decision and making sure the choices are there for them along the way. We need to think more about the psychology of the customer, making sure that their advertising fits in with what they're doing and doesn't upset their user experience. So that is why I love ad blockers, and that is why you should too. They essentially make us do our jobs better and lift the standards of the digital industry as a whole. If you're like me and you love a good ad blocker usage report, the best one that I found is called The Ad Blocking Consumer Usage Attitudes for February 2019. It's produced by IAB UK. There's some fantastic figures in there. For up-to-date information on what ads are considered useful and which ones are considered annoying, go to the Coalition for Better Ads website. And if you fancy checking out how your own website fares and whether it's declared annoying or up to scratch, go to Google's Ad Experience Report, which will identify ad experience that violate the Better Ad standards and give you a pretty good idea of if you're doing a good job or not.